We're back. Tariff uncertainty, one major factor weighing on Apple shares today. The company saying it expects tariffs will add $900 million to its current quarter costs, while any impact beyond June is just too difficult to gauge. Morgan Stanley's top Apple analyst, Erik Woodring, joins us now. Welcome back. It's great to have you on the backside of these earnings, which better than feared. Is that your biggest takeaway this week?
Thanks for having me, Scott. So there's aspects of the report that were definitely better than feared, I think. March quarter revenue at the higher end of their range, growing 5%. If you look back over the last 12 months, this is a business that has grown EPS at about 10, 11%. All of that is probably better than feared. And I think some of the demand commentary, especially on the product side, related to a lack of pull forward, a lack of either demand pull forward or sell-in pull forward. That is better than feared. What we saw in the March quarter was true demand, and I think that was a bit of a positive surprise. Scott, I know you've referenced tariff uncertainty. Obviously, that clearly plays a factor here.
Sure.
I think maybe the bigger factor with this report was maybe the lack of certainty on the June quarter services guide. I think that's really what's weighing on the stock today. Apple has guided services effectively every quarter. We didn't get any incremental color last night. Obviously, service is a key part of this business. I think that plays a role in the stock's move today, too.
I mean, I feel for the community that you reside in which you have to try and model out what's going to happen when Tim Cook himself says he doesn't know because he has no visibility past the current quarter. How do you operate in that environment?
Listen, I have to give Apple credit. It's easier to write research in this environment than operate a $3 trillion manufacturing business. So we have the easy job. They have the tough job, right? And it's not necessarily unusual for Apple not to give guidance or commentary beyond the current quarter. And so I don't necessarily think they owe us anything, whether it comes to September quarter or beyond guidance. But again, that's part of the challenge. The uncertainty here is where is tariff policy going? Where is China policy going? It becomes a bit of a binary outcome. And that's hard when you're trying to pick stocks, especially stocks like Apple, that have exposure to international manufacturing, have exposure to the consumer. So we're talking about tariffs. Obviously, there's some binariness there, but what about the second order effect? Obviously, Steve and the group earlier before me were talking about the potential for a growth slowdown and a recession. This is a company that has effectively 100% exposure to the consumer. That then plays a role in how we need to think about the company. So there's a lot of variables that are at play right now that make it tougher to look beyond the next 3 months with a lot of conviction. That's the tough part here.
Part of the fallout, too, of all of this tariff stuff and the noise and the fog is that we already, as an investor class, are especially impatient about progress on AI. And if anything, this just pushes that back even further, which you have to believe puts some sort of ceiling on what the stock can do until we get more clarity on that.
Yeah, if you just listen to questions that myself and my peers asked on the call last night, a lot of it was around demand pull forward and tariffs and how to mitigate tariffs. If you rewind 3 months ago, the first questions were about AI. And so, again, there's this dynamic that has introduced itself in tariffs that is kind of taken precedent because it's here and now, and we have to respond to it, and there's so much variability to it. Obviously, there were questions about Siri last night, and I don't want to make it seem like those aren't important questions. They are. Now, we do have the developer conference coming up in about a month, June 9th. That will be an important kind of stopgap in learning where Apple's roadmap really is. But the question is, do we get clarity? Do we get a date, for example, that the new Siri is going to be introduced? Or is there some kind of trepidation in introducing a date simply because, at least last night, Tim did admit that they needed more time to kind of fix the problems and make the product better? Do we get a date? Again, there's another piece of uncertainty there that we are dealing with, and obviously a critical one when you look at the rest of the Mag 7 and the role that they are playing in this AI story.
Are you surprised, the last question, that Apple didn't get any bump today on that Wall Street Journal story about, at least some degree of progress with China, or getting the two sides to the table? Is one of the first places I looked when that headline hit, for obvious reasons. Now, the stock was up 8 straight days into the print, too, which you could potentially point to and say, well, that's another reason why the stock may be selling on the news today. But I was kind of surprised by that. What about you?
Yeah, so I think the challenge is that, talks of talks aren't necessarily tangible evidence of progress. And again, if you look at Apple, there was a point over the last month where this was a $170 stock when kind of the tariff narrative was at peak negativity. So you are well above that low. So the market has already priced in a fair degree of what I would call China optimism. So yes, talks of talks are important. But again, I kind of go back to earnings last night because that is so recent with this name. Again, I just think the services part of this business is so critical. It's over 40% of gross profit dollars. And for the first time in multiple years, there's a question mark with exactly where this business will go in the June quarter. Now, it could be much ado about nothing. It could be a real risk. Again, the market hates uncertainty. That's what you're seeing in the stock today, is uncertainty in services, in my opinion, weighing on it and outweighing some of this news related to China progress.
It's critically important, obviously. I mean, I think the services business is like a Fortune 50 all by itself.
Yeah,
so your
exactly.
point's well made. Yeah. We'll see you soon, Eric. Thank you. Erik Woodring, Morgan Stanley, joining us.